I have had the privilege of hunting pheasants throughout the Midwest for over 20 years now. I have hunted them in rain, sub-zero temperatures, snow up to my hind parts, and in temperatures more conducive to golf, but never in desert-like conditions until the fall of 2006. The summer and early fall of 2006 were two of the driest on record for a good many states. Pheasants were, for the most part, coming off of a very mild winter, and that had many of the state game biologists upbeat and ready for a great '06 pheasant season. Unfortunately, these are the best laid plans of mice and men. Mother Nature did not agree. Drought struck a good part of the pheasant range at just the wrong time, killing or damaging a large part of that year's brood. I had been planning my annual pheasant trip for a few months when the drought began to rear its ugly head. Nervously, I watched the weather out west, and specifically the parts of Kansas that I usually frequent. Sure enough, days turned into weeks and then into a couple of months, and the optimism turned to realism. We were not going to have the monster year that could have been. By September, things were still not looking good, and most of the reports were coming out. Pheasants had indeed taken a hit. By early October, it was evident that weather would certainly play a role in my plans. I hit the Kansas Game and Fish website early and often, starting to see a pattern that was clear. I would have to move my operation farther north into the north-central portions of Kansas. These counties had had more moisture, hopefully enough to sustain a good hatch. Pheasants are amazing critters and, quite frankly, one of the most prolific and hardy varieties of birds on planet Earth. Adults can do without much water. Even though I am sure that they would rather have a big gulp each morning, they can survive by drawing moisture from the grain and various insects they feed on. Chicks, on the other hand, must have water and frequently gather their daily ration from the dew that forms on grass, etc., in the mornings and late in the evenings. Thus, the drought came at a bad time for chicks, and many perished. Knowing that this was the case, I was faced with the decision of staying home and fishing, or going and doing the best we can with the circumstances. The decision became an easier one, knowing that my two boys, Harrison and Jonas, were chomping at the bit to get out west and take our annual trip. We would also be gaining a new hunting partner, a solid black German shorthair by the name of Royale. After stopping in Kansas City for licenses and other items, we moved southwest to McPherson to pick up our new pup. It was here in McPherson that we met my longtime hunting partner, Willie Hutchison, for a quick lunch and a couple of hours of afternoon hunting. It was at this point that I realized how dry it was. I had never hunted birds where there was no water, none. Our couple of hours produced several points, a few of which were roosters along with a couple of coveys of quail. The boys and I were able to scratch down 3 roosters and 4 more quail, a good start and a great time shared with an old friend. From McPherson we moved due west into Pawnee County, which had been the home of many good hunts for us over the years. I love hunting this central portion of Kansas. The folks here welcome hunters, and the Kansas WEHA program has loads of ground just calling to be hunted. Up at dawn, we had breakfasts at Don Doe's restaurant and moved a little northwest to an area bordering Rush County. Once again it was dry. No water to be seen in ponds or streams. On this glorious morning, however, the sunrise was awesome, and there was a good frost on the ground, which greatly helped my shorthairs in scenting birds. No matter how dry, this was one of my favorite spots to hunt, and I was very excited to be out with hundreds of acres in front of me. No signs, fences, etc. Oh yeah, and 2 great kids along with my dad. These are times that you want to soak in and allow to permeate all of your parts. 2 hours later, we had pointed 5 roosters and harvested 3 of the 4 that we shot at. It was a great start, and our spirits were high. It was my plan to travel north, eyeballing walk-ins along the way and heading for a few of the counties that bordered Nebraska. The Kansas website was specific in its information that these north-central counties were the place to be. We spent the next 3 days narrowing our search for areas with good cover, grain or crops nearby, and hopefully a little water. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Our 3rd day found us just south and west of Beloit in Mitchell County. Great parcels of CRP that had been enrolled in walk-in and plenty of Milo had us once again upbeat. The only kicker was still no water. Not a drop. Even the creeks on the map had no water. Combine this with 60 degrees, and you have a setup for hot and thirsty dogs. We could not water them enough. I have an idea of what to look for and a knack for occasionally taking a chance at the right time. Such was the case on our third day. I eased the Suburban into a walk-in parking area and glassed the back edge of an 80-acre parcel. What was barely visible was a food plot lying in a low swell on the farthest corner of this land. I dropped the tailgate and unloaded my 3 oldest shorthairs as the boys and I pushed off. I decided to work at an angle and approach this food plot differently than I thought most others had. It took us an extra 30 minutes, but I was banking on having the wind in our face and hoped that a different approach would prove effective. I am proud to say that both my 15-year-old and my 10-year-old are well-trained and pretty seasoned pheasant hunters for their ages. As we neared the end of the plot, I woed the dogs and gave the boys time to flank me and get to the end of the property as we had done many times before. Within about 30 yards of open country, Elsie eased to a point and Cedar and Osmond honored her. The next few seconds were a hectic blur of excitement. The first bird exited to my left, and Harrison made a nice crossing shot on it. At the report, a second rooster blew out to my right, and I heard the subtle pop of Jonas's 28 gauge. I helped the cause, and the second bird was down in the wheat stubble. The third and fourth roosters made their escapes simultaneously. I took the straightaway bird, and Harrison folded the rooster that had blown out the end of the cover. 4 roosters in succession. I released the dogs and they went about their merry way, retrieving and delivering birds for us. Jonas had a vest full, and I was just about to take his photo when Tail-End Charlie broke from the cover. You know, the one that holds and tries to make the group look foolish? Not this time. All 3 of us took a shot, and our 5th bird lay face down and tail up in wheat stubble. 5 flushes and 5 kills. Not bad for Annie Oakley or Buffalo Bill, but for my trio of hunters from southern Indiana, this is a memory that will never fade. These 5 desert roosters will long live on in our family hunting lore. Republished with permission from Desert Roosters by Jeff Carmichael, 2008. The Upland Almanac, Summer 2008. 2008 by Jeff Carmichael.